Hey everybody, welcome back. As I, of all people, know, and most know, there is some debate and controversy over whether or not Khufu built the Great Pyramid. Now, there is quite a bit of evidence that he did build it. Most detractors will say that that's just circumstantial evidence. Now, be that as it may, circumstantial evidence is actually evidence, as a person can be charged, tried, convicted, and executed on less circumstantial evidence than what is being put forward that Khufu built the pyramid. But in this video, I want to focus on a specific piece of evidence that isn't really circumstantial, that mainstream points to as probably the best evidence that Khufu constructed the Great Pyramid. So we'll go through it. And that piece of evidence is actually the oldest papyrus document ever found. It's called the Meryre Papyrus, or Meryre, whichever way you want to say it. It means beloved of Re. And it was discovered in 2013 by Pierre Tallet at the harbor of Khufu on the Red Sea at Wadi al Jarf. Okay? And the reason they found it is the thing about ancient Egypt boats and ships especially is the ones made out of wood were extraordinarily expensive. See, not a lot of usable trees grow in Egypt for building or ship construction. They had to import it, usually from Lebanon. That's why in a lot of tomb paintings you'll see that a lot of the barges and general boats that go up and down the Nile in those scenes are actually made from reeds, which is a very good way to build boats, especially if you're carrying heavy loads, but they don't last too long. So your really good cargo boats were built of wood. And what they would do is, when they weren't being used, instead of leaving them in the water in a harbor like we do today with our fiberglass and aluminum boats, because they aren't really going to be affected, they actually dismantled them and sealed them in basically man-made caves off of the beach where it was dry, and these boats would be preserved. So, and then when needed, they could just reassemble them and put them back in the water. So in one of these boat caves, they found pieces of papyrus that dates to the time of Khufu. And it's the log of an inspector. He's a high official named Meryre. And he was in charge of a crew of 200. And we don't just have to rely on any scientific dating to know when it was from. He actually wrote the dates of when he was doing things. And in this case, we're looking at the fragment that we have, which is from the 26th year of Khufu. He actually wrote that date, from July to November, so about a 5-month period. A little side note, the papyrus of Meryre proves absolutely one thing, and that is what Dr. McCoy said at the end of Star Trek IV, is that the bureaucratic mentality is the only constant in the universe. Absolutely proves that, because we're talking 4,300 years ago, and it really is no different than today. You got to log everything. So what's interesting about this 5-month period that they have in the log is he's logging his crew's trips on this cargo vessel between Tura and Giza. And what he's transporting blocks of Tura limestone, and they were about 1 to 2 tons. And about every 10 days, that boat would make 3 round trips. And, I'll read. It's just him writing what they did each day. It's not extraordinary detail, but it just says, day 4, cast off from Tura, morning sail downriver towards Akhet Khufu, which is horizon of Khufu, which is the pyramid. Everything he mentions is named after Khufu except for Tura. And then day 5, cast off from Tura in the afternoon, sail towards Akhet Khufu. Okay. Day 6, cast off from Akhet Khufu and sail uprivers towards Tura. Okay. Just a day 8. Cast off in the morning from Tura, sail down river towards Akhet Khufu, spend the night there. Okay. See, it's just basically like that. And then he does other things, but they come back and they make these trips. Okay. And according to the numbers, they were transporting about 200 of these blocks per month. So in a 5-month period, this one cargo vessel transported about 1,000 blocks of Tura limestone from Tura to Giza. Okay. Now, why is this important? For a couple reasons. There's really only one monument there, one type of monument that uses Tura limestone, especially a lot of it, and blocks that size, and that is constructing a pyramid. There's also indication here that he wasn't the only ship doing it, because if you go through it, other than certain repairs that he makes, you'll go through this. There's day 20 where he had to repair the rudder. And then day 25, Inspector Meryre spends the day with his file or crew hauling stones in Tura South, spends the night at Tura South. Then day 26, they cast off from Tura South loaded with stone for Akhet Khufu and spends the night at Sheikh Khufu, which is, it's like a harbor or a lake. But it's not Akhet Khufu, but it's nearby. Okay. The thing is then day 28 casts off from Akhet Khufu in the morning, sails up river. Then he said, so he has a little area where he generally stops while he's waiting. So he'll go to Tura South and then go to Tura North. So he's stopping and then going again. Now keep in mind, Tura is only 8 miles from Giza. Okay, so he's making these round trips. And it looks like they're putting the stones on in about half a day. So it should, if he goes up, spends the night, runs the stones, come back, spend the night, go back. But occasionally it takes an extra day. So it looks like he's waiting at Tura South to go to Tura North, waiting for other boats to clear, or he's sailing for Akhet Khufu, but he has to spend the night not at Akhet Khufu because he's waiting for other boats to clear. So if you imagine, there's more than one boat hauling 200 stones a month. Now, as far as Tura limestone in the Great Pyramid, there's about 100,000 blocks. And this is in the span of a year. So in a 5-month period, a few boats are hauling several thousand blocks. Okay. So why is this proof that Khufu constructed the pyramid? How does this prove that? Okay. Now we have to talk about pyramid construction and the different ideas regarding it. And first, let me say again, as I often say, whether or not Khufu built that pyramid does not change any other theories. It doesn't change the possibility of an extraterrestrial intervention. It doesn't change the possibility of lost technology being involved. It doesn't change the possibility of a lost civilization. And perhaps the Egyptians were aware of something as they constructed it. It doesn't matter. Khufu could still have built this and everything still be not be able to be dismissed. So just remember that. So let's go with the first one. A lot of people say, well, this really would only prove that he was putting casing stones on the pyramid. He was doing a restoration. Okay? Well, let's think about that for a minute. The casing stones are the very outer layer of the pyramid. And there is no good way, if he was doing a restoration or he was installing the casing stones, if the core pyramid was already sitting there, there's really no good way to get those stones up the pyramid that's already built and put them in place, or even if he was replacing stones. Okay? Because there's no way. Remember, wood is extraordinarily expensive, and the cedars are not going to hold 2-ton stones. All right? Many people have already proven that. So it would be extraordinarily expensive to do that and not even practical. So the next practical way to do it would be to build a ramp. Well, once you reach past a certain point, about a third of the way up the pyramid, the ramp itself to go all the way to the top would have to be around 7 miles long. Now, there is evidence on the plateau of a ramp being used, but not to that extent. The problem with that is, for that one ramp to go up all the way and be 7 miles, it would be double the cost in labor and materials to build the ramp than it would be to actually build the pyramid. Okay? Add to that, that ramp would have to be removed, which adds another layer of intense cost. Now, to do all 4 sides, you would need 4 ramps. Okay? So you're talking about the cost of building 4 pyramids from scratch just to install casing stones. It doesn't make sense. And I'll explain why this makes a difference here in a second. Now, if you want to say that, well, Khufu had some access to anti-gravity technology or some other way to get those stones up the pyramid, well, then he would have had the technology to build the pyramid from start to finish. So if you argue that this would have to have been built earlier because of unknown technology from another civilization or extraterrestrials, then that doesn't prove Khufu didn't build it, because if Khufu had access to that technology, he could have very easily used that technology to build the pyramid, let alone put casing stones on. But here's the deal. The most logical way to install the casing stones on the pyramid is to do it as you're building it. Each layer, you put the core and also put those casing stones. It makes more sense. It's more logical to do it that way. You don't have to have any other structures involved in order to put that up. So it wasn't that they built the pyramid and then put the casing stones. They were doing everything at each level. Okay, these were not stupid people. Therefore, if he was installing casing stones on the pyramid, he was building it. Okay, that's what this means. Meryre shipping Tura casing stones for a pyramid logically means the pyramid was being constructed. Now, despite what you believe, and a lot of information isn't presented even by the mainstream, let alone alternative researchers, that tells the whole story. And if you don't know what questions to ask, you're not going to get all that information, because not everybody knows it. But the reality of the situation is, it was completely possible for Khufu to build the pyramid. And in a lot of minds, the Meryre Papyrus absolutely proves that. So, not looking to change minds, just looking to explain it. I welcome any opinions in the comments. If you want to change my mind, please cite your sources. Other than that, till next time, thanks a lot.